There we go.
We are, but you shut your camera off. Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, 5-minute countdown. We're a little late getting started, but third Monday in a row. Welcome to the 4th and Goal podcast. David and Chris, as always. We'll see you here in about 4.5 minutes after we share all the goodies to our friends and followers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woohoo!
What's up,
All
everybody?
right.
How's everybody doing?
Good evening, everybody. Hello, my friend. How's your week been?
My week has been good. It's been good. A long weekend. We got a lot of rain Friday, so fortunately, I had to work the whole weekend. But I should be in Cedar Point this Saturday with my daughter. Regardless if it rains and messes my whole week up, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah. Well, it's been all right here. You know, a lot of heat. I wish it would rain, but just a lot of heat right here. Been in the hundreds, and which for anybody in this part of the country that's in training camp like the Chiefs, boy, I tell you, being out in that kind of heat. Good evening, Ron. Good to see you here.
It's been a minute, Ron. Glad to have you back, buddy. How you been, buddy?
And so let's begin with some news and notes from around the league. And the first news and notes that I have is just, we'll call it, fantasy flag football. The Olympics are going on, and with the Olympics, the flag football is going to be a new sport in 2028. It'll be in LA, so, a lot of people are talking about who do they think will be on the team, come 4 years from now, and there's a lot of, and I call it fantasy, because the NFL is going to have to endorse this. If they do not endorse it, you're not going to get players from the NFL playing the flag football because of the risk of injuries. Okay? Now the quarterback might be fine, but the receivers that are going to do a lot of running, there could be hamstrings, there could be ACLs, anything could happen in the quest for a gold medal. And so, everybody's like, oh, well, it'll be, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill may not even be playing football by then. And as we know, okay, when it comes to like basketball, these teams have to qualify, which means they're not going to play in just the Olympics. There's going to have to be some form of tournaments that they'll be playing possibly around the world at all different times of the year, and it could affect the NFL season. It could affect, training camp. It could affect a lot of things, if they're going to allow these guys to play. And so while it's a big pipe dream to have NFL players playing flag football against international competition, I think that we're jumping the gun here a little, Chris. What do you think?
What I think this is, for one, flag football is stupid, ignorant, stupid. No one's going to watch Olympic flag football. It's like going to the local park, grabbing 2, 3, 4-year-olds and saying, hey, play for your country. No, that's not, You're going to go there and have fun for your kid, but you're not going to put that shit on TV and call off of work to make sure you don't miss the game at noon on a Tuesday. You
do know that they watch curling on TV, right?
Well,
they watch curling, and they watch, equestrian with the horses, and they watch swimming. Okay, you do know that they have these competitions that are, not normal things that people watch. But once the Olympics comes along, everybody's all in.
I know. I get that.
Nobody watches gymnastics year round.
I get that, but those are legitimate sports. Flag
So is
football.
flag football.
Flag football to me is not legitimate. Not for Olympics anyway.
It's not professional football because
That's what
they
I'm
don't have
saying.
the helmets that necessarily. They don't have the shoulder pads. There's no tackling involved. It's a different game. Okay,
That's what I'm saying.
Like
it's not a professional
if you got rugby, you got 15 players playing rugby, or you have 7 players playing rugby. Completely different game. But they are interested in playing it. We've had NFL people speak up and saying that they would be interested in being in the Olympics, and then we've got Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, and X/Twitter. Where they're all, well, who's going to be on the team? And, we're going to kill everybody. Well, you're not going to kill everybody if the players in the NFL are not allowed to participate.
Well,
and just because they play in the NFL doesn't mean they're going to be good at flag football.
I understand this, but let me finish my take.
Cool.
My take is flag football, it's not a professional sport. It don't belong. To me, it should be a professional sport. And now, I get it. You can't play football in the Summer Olympics and then a player gets hurt. I understand why they mentioned flag football. I get the concept. But let's be smart. When's football played? More in the winter, not the summer. More of a winter, right? So why don't you, if you want football in the Olympics, it should be in the Winter Olympics with hockey, winter sports. Guess what? Winter Olympics, I believe, take place in February. So it means NFL season's done. It's over. No more games. So for the players that want to play in the Olympics, guess what? You got a month or two. If you want to play for Team USA football, you can do it. Guess what? Season's over because the Super Bowl is played in the beginning of February. So that's the best time to do it. Then you could put the real sport. But the thing is, who the fuck are they going to play? Yeah. Canada?
That's one of. They're not going to play the real sport. They're not going to play the real sport with real NFL players. That will put the nix on it immediately. Just like they don't play the Pro Bowl anymore because nobody watches it. Okay, yeah. because nobody hits. It might as well be flag football, and that's why they turned it into flag football when they do the Pro Bowl and the Pro Bowl games.
Or for that matter, like you said, if NFL players are not going to they're not going to play in it, then why don't we go get some high schoolers? Let them put some fucking pads on. Or let's go get some college kids that don't have a shot at the NFL. I'm talking about like D2 schools, you know what I mean? Like real low schools. There's other ways to do this if that's what they want. But I'll be damned if we should go embarrass ourselves playing flag football in the Olympics. While you got NHL players who take time out of the NHL season to go play the Olympics every time the Olympics comes every 4 years for their country. And they hit, they check, they play. And then they come right back home and play again.
Just play professional style hockey in other countries. They don't play professional in all these other countries. Okay?
That's why I think it's dumb.
In that and the dangers of playing the game for real going to happen. They've already made the decision that it's going to be in the summer. The first time is going to be in Los Angeles in 2028, and it's just a matter of figuring out who the players are going to be because they're going to have to play, some kind of play-in tournaments to be, to qualify because we're not the only country. There's tons of countries that play flag football because nobody gets hurt like they do in flag football, in these other countries People are not willing to put their lives on the line for no money unless at the end of the rainbow, like in college football, which now has NIL but didn't used to, they have an opportunity to, if I perform well here, I'm going to be drafted and I'm going to make millions of dollars.
Well, I mean, for the record, if any NFL team signs a fucking flag football player from the Olympics, to me, it just shows how stupid that team is. How do you know that kid? How do you know that dude can take a hit carrying the ball? Because I'm sorry, anybody can run a ball and pull a flag. Am I right? Am I wrong, David?
My thoughts is that there are teams all over the league that are signing players from other sports and giving them an opportunity to, and it doesn't cost them anything because they don't count against their roster. Let's take the Kansas City Chiefs, for example. Okay. They signed this rugby star, Louis Rees-Zammit. Okay. He's a rugby star in England. He's in training camp. He doesn't cost them a roster spot. They have a chance to train him, work him out. He's an athlete. Can he make the team? Will he be on the practice squad or will he be cut? If anybody that isn't playing in the NFL plays in these flag football games, and you're going to have these other countries, you're going to have guys with speed. You're going to have guys with good cover skills. There's going to be corners and receivers will be the main thing other than the quarterback in this flag football. Okay. And if they show something, they'll bring them into camp. They'll put some pads on them and see what they got for real. And if they are for real, they can make a team.
I get it if they're for real, but let me ask you this because I'm glad you bring that up. And this is not me taking a shot at the Chiefs or anything.
No, you're fine.
But you guys got a rugby player. I mean, if he works out, kudos to him. Congrats. I'll be happy for the kid. I don't hate the guy. But how many fucking times have we heard this shit? The Lions signed like 3 of them. Never played. They went back home. Multiple other teams have done this over the whole years. Not many of these players make the team and make the league.
Philadelphia signed, and I'm going to get his name right by looking here. He is now a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. Okay. They signed Jordan Mailata, Australian rules football guy. Okay.
Yeah.
He's a lineman for the Eagles, and he's a Pro Bowler. Okay. And so he, that, and of course we've had, guys, kickers and punters. It happens all the time.
Well, yeah, kickers and punters, that's one thing though.
I think it's Morten Andersen was from Denmark,
yeah,
or something like that. And so I think that this opens up, an opportunity for more players to get a look in the NFL. But once again, the players that are going to actually play for Team USA, are they really going to be NFL guys? Are they going to be college guys? Are they going to be, like you said, high schoolers? Is it going to be like, basketball and hockey where the pros are playing a version of, of the game? Like, the NBA players, they're used to playing 48 minutes. Goaltending is different. They do different things there in the Olympics. It's a 40-minute game. And then, goaltending, you could get away with a lot more, in the FIBA game, if
I'll
you will.
get to this in a minute, Ron.
And so, I just think that people are jumping the gun, and until we get a little bit more information on how the players will be selected, will they be allowed to play? Are they going to have to do play-in tournaments against Mexico and Canada and, kind of like a Confab Cup type thing where they have to earn their way into the Olympics, or are they just like, well, there's 8 teams and here you go? I'm interested to see how it works, because for me, I would be concerned about the health of the corners and the receivers that are going to be in the game because of all the running that they're going to be doing, and it's not necessarily because they're not going to get tackled, but are they're going to stress their tendons and their ligaments, and they're, going to get themselves hurt playing for an Olympic medal, and then you miss the NFL season where you're actually getting paid all this money, to try and win a Super Bowl championship.
This might make me sound ignorant when I say this, but I promise you, if this really goes through, I hope USA loses every year. I never want to see him to win a freaking gold for flag football. This is the most sissiest thing I've ever heard in my life right now. I cannot believe we're having a legitimate conversation of flag football for the Olympics.
Okay.
I'm still going to root for my country, but still the freaking point here. Come on.
You are, because you just said you want them to lose.
I just don't think flag football.
Are you being two-faced? I don't understand.
Hey, I just.
It sounds to me like you don't know what it is that you want to say, and you're flabbergasted we're having this conversation. This is a legitimate conversation that's going on the internet right now.
No, I know it is. And I've been ignoring it.
And so, let's be honest, there's not a lot of news coming out right now. And so I thought this would be interesting to talk about. It sounds to me like you don't believe in the spirit of flag football. You don't believe in the chance of anybody else winning other than the USA. You don't want us to participate. You can't believe it's become an Olympic sport. And you're mad about everything. Are you a grumpy old man, sir?
Listen, I would love football being Olympics. Did you hear what I just said, David? Football.
It is football. It's flag football.
It's not. It's not the real game. It's a version made.
Is it a competition? Is it a competition?
It's a competition, but
are people in danger of being hurt?
Technically, yes. You can still.
Are other countries participating?
Yes.
Can you win a medal if you win the whole thing?
Yes. Does it?
Has it already been added to the Olympics?
I don't know if it has been added to the
Olympics,
honestly, because I've been ignoring this whole topic. There's a reason. Because to me, this is embarrassing.
By ignoring the topic, you're speaking on something you don't know anything about.
Hey, I never said you weren't lying. Did I ever say you were lying about anything you said?
No, but I mean, okay. You're throwing a little fit here over this, and I think it's funny.
I do think it's funny. It is comical. I'm laughing at myself right now. But the whole point I'm trying to make is, to me, it just is just downgrading the whole sport of football. I don't understand why you can't just put it in the winter and play the real game. Okay, NFL don't want NFL players. They're not even going to let them play flag football. Okay, let somebody else play in real pads and play the real game. Is that too hard to ask for?
My thoughts is that by having this in the Olympics, whether they allow the NFL players to play the game or not, it grows the game for the future of the sport.
Well, it's
because
on the NFL.
Everybody starts playing flag football, and then they decide they want to turn it into real football, And so, you got to start somewhere. And in an attempt to prevent younger kids, the youth of, America or the world from head trauma, being injured, I think that this is a lot safer version of football. And if they get people involved and they become really good, If they become really good at it, then they can transfer themselves, into let's go to college and play for real, And because, everybody that goes, some are in it for the competition, okay? Some are in it for the competition. Some are in it for the education, when they go to college. And some of them are for, if I'm the best at this, if I do my absolute best and we win and I show my skills, I'm going to get drafted and I'm going to make millions of dollars.
Okay, I got a question. Will you be pissed if the NFL came out in 5 years and said, no more tackling, no more hitting, the league's going to flag football? Would you be?
Yes, because this is not the same deal.
Guess what, David?
But there's a chance that it could happen in the future. Okay? We as the spectators of the sport, okay, will have to adapt at that time if it happens. Okay? There's too much gambling involved. There's too much advertising involved. There's too much money involved for the sport to disappear if rule changes are made to change the overall sport.
So
it's not going anywhere.
Okay, but this is what you guys are not seeing. Everything in this world is a test. I'm not even bringing politics into this show, but all I'm going to say is the government even does test. And if it passes the test, then they make that shit a law and change the society, right? This is the way the NFL can get. What if flag football blows up in the Olympics, David? They're making all the money and the views, the sponsorships, and all that. Say that has a solid 10 years. Guess what the NFL is going to do? They sold it to you.
They're gonna start a flag football league.
No, they're just changing
because they already have the stadiums. They already have the players. They'll sign players to play in both leagues. And one group will play in the summer, and one group will play in the normal season.
That will never happen. If the NFL ever goes,
money talks. Just like we'll never play 17 games, and we'll never play 18 games. And all of the stadiums, there's no way the majority of the stadiums will suddenly become domes where they can make more money. There's also no chance that the NFL will get in bed with these gambling establishments. I'm 46 years old. I'm telling you right now, if it makes money, they'll be right on top of it. They're keeping a close eye on it.
My question is, why would they open another league? They would just turn their league into it. And guess what? The players are not going to cry about it. Because they're getting paid millions.
By having a spring summer football league, that eliminates the competition for other league like the UFL or somebody else to come in and get their piece of the pie.
Well, David, I'm glad you brought the Europe Football League up. Well, look at the Europe Football League. When the Europe League was around, didn't they play in the summertime?
I said the UFL.
Okay. Well, when NFL Europe was around, didn't they play in the summertime?
They did.
And they failed. Because what?
But it was owned by the NFL, and they did it in a foreign country as a minor league. Okay?
I understand that.
If they wanted it to succeed, they would have done it here, but they were concerned about, where they're going to put it. They didn't want to have two teams in the same city. They would have had to have gotten new stadiums and played in spots. This was an attempt not only to have a minor league, but to expand the game elsewhere, just like all these foreign games that we have now. We're going to Brazil this year. Okay, we started going to Germany the last couple of years. What I don't understand is why they're not playing in Canada and Mexico this year, because with the extra game, the 17th game, which eventually will become 18, okay, they could have every team in the league could play a neutral site game in a foreign country. There's 2 different locations in Mexico. There's 4 to 6 locations in Canada. There's 2 spots in London. There's 2 spots in Germany. We know we're going to Spain next year. Okay, already know we're going to Spain next year.
But
we're in Brazil this year.
But here's my thing. It didn't matter that they played in Europe. It didn't matter that they played. The whole point, what makes these leagues money, is viewership. Sponsors, commercials, advertisement. That's what really makes these leagues all the money. Europe football would have worked if it was played in the fall, when football fans, diehard football fans, spend the whole winter and their whole weekend around football between college and NFL. What does normal football fans do in the summertime? I think most of them like to actually live a life and enjoy their weekends and do all their fun things because they know once football comes around, they're going to take their extra free time and watch their team in other games. I know in the summertime, I'm way more fucking active on the weekend than I am in October because guess what? At 1 o'clock, I'm going to be watching the Lions. I don't care what's going on. I don't care you have a birthday party. I don't care. You know what I mean? So in the summertime, I do all my fun stuff, just like 90% of the real football fans do. That's why that league failed, is when the time was when they played. My whole thing is they could have had it here. You don't think the NFL could have called like University of Eastern Michigan, hey, you ain't using your football field until the fall. We pay you, we'll give you this much money to lease it out to the Michigan Rattlesnakes.
I just think that they were attempting to expand the game to other markets, and that's the reason why it was in Europe. Yeah, and so I got a couple things here for comments that are going on. Ron, you got a kicker. You got Jake Bates from the UFL. That dude was kicking 50 and 60-yard field goals in the springtime. So you're good to go. Okay?
Listen,
you don't have to worry about your kicker.
Well, this is why Lions fans are freaking the fuck out. And you might not have heard it in Kansas. I don't think it's made national news. But Jake Bates has been struggling the last couple of weeks. He's missed some extra points, had some bad kicks in practice. But he's also been kicking 60-yarders, 54-yarders, 58-yarders, 59 yards. So he's still making 60 yards, 50-plus yard kicks. He's missed a few. We're also in like week 2, week 3 of training camp, maybe, if that. So now you're taking a kid out of the UFL that, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these players are crap because we've found some diamonds in the rough in the league that have made some names in the last couple of years coming to the NFL from this league. Now, what I will say is the defense that he faced on special teams when he's kicking is 10 times different than the NFL defense on special teams. You're talking about better players, faster players, taller players. So there's a lot more things to this. And I mean, yeah, he's had a couple bad kicks, Ron, but I think we're jumping the gun. I think if this is typical Detroit nature, is, oh my God, they got to get somebody. I'm not ready to call the dude. I'm not ready to call quits on this guy. He's still making 60-yard field goals.
The guy who was kicking and had the longest kick in Super Bowl history before Butker beat him was a rookie last year, Moody for the 49ers. He struggled earlier in the year, but the longer the year went on, the dude was hitting them. Okay, you know, you got to give this guy a chance to perform in live competition. This is still training camp. This is still practice. You know, there's a reason they go to training camp and practice. So don't get too, concerned early. If he misses a few when the regular season gets started, then you could start questioning it. But I think that they're going to be just fine. I think that this guy's going to be good for y'all. And I think that it's great that he played for Michigan Panthers, and then immediately ends up with the Detroit Lions and is going to be you guys' starting kicker. So
yeah, I just think everybody needs to chill out. Let the kid get some skill underneath him. Let him get dialed in. They're used to, the faster, taller players.
And then
if we could call Jason Hansen, I think we all would, bud. That dude's a once-in-a-lifetime kicker, unfortunately, and maybe we get a kicker like that again, but it's hard. It's hard to redo. I mean, I'm being honest. Look at Jason Hansen's numbers. He leads the whole franchise in the most points scored.
Well, he was there a long time, 20 years, I think.
I think it was more than that.
Yeah.
Because Jason Hansen, by the time I started getting football and really noticing football, I was probably like 7, 8, 9 years old. Jason Hansen was literally the kicker for 90% of my life.
Yeah.
That is not a joke.
All right, well, listen, and then he says, speaking of the 18 games, when that happens, because it will, he thinks that the rosters need to be expanded. They will. The rosters will get expanded. There will be 2 buys, and I think that it'll be a situation where they stagger them to where teams, there'll be like a 3-week window earlier in the season and a 3-week window later in the season where everybody gets a bye within the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season, and everybody gets a bye within the, 12 to 15 weeks of the season. Everybody will get 2 buys. They'll have but they're going to have load management. And that's why they are going to have, a bigger rosters, is because it's already a long season. It was long at 16. Okay. But the thrill of getting that extra dollar, and it's not the guys that are getting paid that are pushing this. It's the rank and file players that are going to get another game check on their what would have been a minimum salary. The minimum salary is even more with more games. And they want that extra money, and because they do not have what I will call a real solid union, because you've got all of the higher price guys up here, all of the lower price guys here, and the lower price guys, there's so many more of them that they're pushing the agenda for the union. Instead of everybody kind of working together, to get the best deals that they can. And so, everybody's all like, well, we're going to get another game check. Well, if they increase the rosters, then that money is not going to be as much as you thought it was going to be, because the salary cap, will be adjusted for the extra people on the roster and the extra money they're going to get from the television contracts and the attendance and the concessions and all the other stuff that comes into play when it comes to the money that the NFL makes. You
guys got high hopes.
It's gonna dwindle that money. They're all like, well, I'm going to make another this guy's going to make another $250,000 because there's another game. No, it's going to be $190,000 because of the other 7 players that we just added to your roster.
Just not that, but here's the thing: you guys are talking like this is going to happen.
Oh, it's happening.
The 18th game is happening.
Yeah, the 18th.
The other shit you guys are saying, the only thing that guarantee. Hang on. The only thing is
they're going to have bigger rosters. They're going to have the second bye. They're going to have, 18 games. All of this has already been talked about and discussed. The parameters are in place. with the union for this to happen.
Just
but
because
it's the things that the union wants that the NFL doesn't want to do that's holding it up.
I understand that. But I don't care what anything said on ESPN to fucking articles. Nothing is legit. We know they talked about it. But here's the thing. Did you guys notice they added extra game, right? And the last time I checked, the maximum players on your whole team could be 53. They didn't change it the last time.
They added
no guarantee they'll change it this time.
They added practice squad players. They reduced the number of padded practices. They increased the number of guaranteed money that is allowed to be guaranteed. There was different things that they got in return for getting the other game.
Yeah. Practice squad.
So, all right. Well, listen. This week, other news and notes. We've got the NFL's top 100 players comes out. And to a lot of people's shock and surprise, Tyreek Hill was number one. And with him being number one and all these wide receivers getting, these major paydays, Mr. Tyreek Hill must have had a conversation with his team about how much he was making. And so they signed him for not more years, but they altered the contract to where he would be making $90 million over the next 3 years. So he gets about a $2.5 million a year raise, making $30 million a year for the Dolphins. And so that brings him up a little bit. Somebody made a comment on Facebook. They said, well, he needs that extra money to feed all these kids he's got coming. And I laughed at that. And then the other one is Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs signed the richest kicker deal in NFL history this week. Negotiated it himself after everybody wanted him kicked off the team for his comments, let's get rid of the guy and all that stuff that was being said on Facebook. He signs a contract extension and becomes the highest paid kicker in the NFL.
Yes.
I agree. Tyreek Hill is worth every penny. But I tell you what, I think he'd give a lot of that money back to go back to being on the Kansas City Chiefs and winning the championships that he's missed out on. Because he talks about them all the time. He's like the abandoned child. It's so funny. The comments that he makes all the time about Kansas City.
I mean, he does, but in reality, he was right, but the Chiefs showed him wrong.
And so we were just talking about Tyreek Hill, and that leads us to the first team we're going to talk about in our breakdowns this week, and that's the Miami Dolphins.
I mean, just for a record, I think Miami's kind of smart.
Do what now?
I said, I think Miami's just trying to, because if I'm not mistaken, he's going to need a contract extension coming up here soon, right? 2 years?
Nope. No, he's got 3 years left on the deal. And so, anyway, here, just taking a look here at the Miami Dolphins. A lot of losses, and there's some things to be concerned about here. My overall view of the Miami Dolphins this offseason is that their defense and their offensive line took a pretty big hit. And so, they bring in Odell Beckham Jr., who has not been the same player since he got hurt in the Super Bowl with the Rams. Jonnu Smith at tight end and Jody Fortson, who was injury-prone in Kansas City. Offensive linemen Aaron Brewer and Jack Driscoll are fill-ins for the better players that they lost in the offseason here. They did pick up Benito Jones and Neville Gallimore at defensive tackle. And they're going to, and Calais Campbell and Tierra Tart. It's going to take all of those guys in a rotation, really, to try and make up for the loss of Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. They got a completely revamped linebacking core. Jordan Brooks comes in, Anthony Walker. They lost Andrew Van Ginkel, Roquan Davis, Justin Houston, and Melvin Ingram were both players that were brought in, for the playoff run, and it didn't work out. One of the best corners in football, in Xavier Howard, leaves. So they try to replace him with Kendall Fuller, comes over from Washington. Syrian Neal and, Jordan Poyer is the one major pickup here in my mind at safety. I think that he'll do just fine replacing Deshaun Elliott. But, you look at some of the other losses that they have. Now, Chase Claypool, nothing special there, but Cedric Wilson Jr. was both a special teamer and a very reliable wide receiver when they needed him. Robbie Chosen, the former Robbie Anderson, another player like Claypool, they're not getting the targets. It's going to Waddle. It's going to Tyreek Hill. The tight end has been kind of wishy-washy since Mike Gesicki left the last year. So they bring in, Jonnu Smith, who used to be a pretty good player when he was with the Tennessee. He went to Atlanta to play in the same defense or the same offense with Arthur Smith that he was used to playing, and they just couldn't get him the ball because they didn't have a quarterback there. And so, offensive line, again, real concerned. Connor Williams and Robert Hunt, both gone. Brewer and Driscoll are not going to replace them in a positive manner. They're not going to fill their shoes. And so, but they're, first round pick, Chop Robinson, linebacker, they're definitely going to need him. Like I said, they have to revamp their whole linebacking core. And then Patrick Paul, the offensive lineman in the second round, I expect him to be a starter and maybe will take over for Hunt, in the offensive line. Your thoughts, Chris, on the Miami Dolphins?
Miami Dolphins, I still think they could win this division. I think they're the team to actually beat in this division this year. With Buffalo going through what they've went through. I think they did some good things. They got Claypool out of there. That was kind of sad because he didn't do shit with Pittsburgh, really. He had a couple, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he have like one real decent year to show potential? And then nothing from there.
His rookie year in Pittsburgh was good, and then after that, it was straight in the toilet.
Yeah. Then he goes to Chicago, does nothing, and then he went to Miami. Literally nothing.
And now he's signed with Buffalo.
At this point, he's just a camp body.
Yeah.
Kristen Wilkins, that's a huge loss for Miami. But, with the way that these players play, man, it's hard to keep these players. And I'm kind of I'm not a Miami fan, but I'm still kind of shocked that Watkins picked Vegas of all the places to go to.
They just couldn't afford him. They knew they were going to have to pay Tua, who got paid here a couple weeks ago. Now they're handing out raises to Tyreek, because he's not happy being, he at one point he was the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And then you turn around and there's like 7 guys that are ahead of him now. They couldn't afford to give him the kind of money that, that he wanted, but they at least bumped him up to the $30 million range. which has got to satisfy them a little bit. But this is not going to be the last time that Miami is between a rock and a hard place when it comes to their salary cap situation. Over the next couple of years, they're going to have to shuffle a lot of things around, and it's going to look a little like this. There's going to have some additions that are just kind of, you don't know what you're going to get from some of these guys, and a whole stack of losses.
Yeah, it's just I get that concept, but maybe it's just me, because I'd rather be at a place that has a chance to win a championship than for the money. Because you give me $20 million, I'll live the rest of my life rent-free, no issues, no problem. But that is me. That's not some of these players.
Yeah.
No, Miami's still there, and that Jordan Pryor, I have to agree with you. That was a great signing by him. I always liked him as a safety.
Yeah, they just couldn't afford him in Buffalo.
I think the Odell Beckham Jr., I think that was a kind of stupid signing. I mean, the last time we seen Odell actually do something was with the Rams, and that was still even mediocre in my opinion.
He's going to be a distraction, with the other two guys getting the ball all the time. And, but I think that Miami really needs to do what they did last year. They need to rely on their running game. They're obviously going to have an explosive offense if they can protect the passer. But I voiced this last week, or perhaps it was the week before. Tua showed up slim. He showed up slim this year after bulking up last year because he was taking so many hits. Well, now he's going to be slim. That's fine. Does that mean he's going to be faster and have more willingness to take off? But that's not going to protect him when everybody's trying to take his head off because they know that he's concussion prone. And when you look at their schedule, it's not an easy schedule. They got to go to the Rams. They got to go to Green Bay, to Houston. They get San Francisco at home and also Jacksonville. But, and Tennessee's coming to town, and we expect them to be a lot more improved. Of course, they got to play Buffalo twice. We don't know what they're going to get out of the Jets. But I just think that this looks like, at best, a 10-7 football team. I think they could still be, in the chase for a wild card, but they're going to be battling other teams for that wild card spot. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, one of the Baltimore, Cincinnati, Chargers, Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee, all of those teams, and there's only so many spots. I know they added the seventh, playoff spot here a few years back, but I just don't know if they can make the playoffs again this year. And what does that mean going forward for their coach, who has gone to the playoffs 2 consecutive years and has nothing to show for it? 2 losses in a row in the playoffs. 1 in Buffalo, 1 in Kansas City.
To me, their window's closing fast down there, so they better do something.
And so we'll move on to our next team, and we'll go to the NFC this time. And let's go with everybody's, just America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Who wants to talk about the fucking Cowboys? Not this guy.
Well, we have to.
Good evening, Gregory. How you doing, buddy? Hey, Ron, we're talking about your favorite team, buddy. Come on. Talk your shit.
All right, so breaking down the Dallas Cowboys, it's kind of funny to talk about them, because they're all in. You're all in. Look at all the losses on this page. Okay? I mean, I guess Michael Gallup isn't a big loss because he ended up going to Vegas and immediately retiring. But you've got your 10-year strong veteran left tackle Tyron Smith leaving because of a salary cap situation to go play for the Jets. You got a couple of really good defensive linemen in Dorrance Armstrong and Neville Gallimore you had to let walk. Dante Fowler left to go play with his buddy Dan Quinn in Washington. But Tony Pollard wanted good money again, as a running back, and they can't afford to give it to him. So he runs off to Tennessee. So they decide to bring back Ezekiel Elliott. Now, Elliott looked thinner than I had seen him in a couple of years. He had a little burst of speed. Maybe it was just the fact that the rest of the New England Patriots team looked so bad. But Zeke looked like he had a burst again last year, and they bring him back to Dallas. Royce Freeman is a camp body. Tyron Johnson is possibly a returner at best. Carl Davis Jr. comes in. The big addition, because, with Dan Quinn leaving to become head coach of the Washington Commanders, they bring in Mike Zimmer, who's a former defensive coordinator in Dallas. So he knows ownership. He's comfortable there. He's the former head coach of the Minnesota Vikings after spending many years as the defensive coordinator in Cincinnati under Marvin Lewis. So he comes back, and Eric Kendricks was his main guy in his defense in Minnesota. Kendricks was cut last year by the Vikings in a salary cap move. He spent a season with the Chargers, and now he winds up with Dallas to come help install Mike Zimmer's defense. I like Damian Wilson as a linebacker. He's a former Chief. But they didn't do anything. They lost so many players. Stephon Gilmore has not signed a contract anywhere yet, but there's no way that they can afford him in Dallas because you got CeeDee Lamb, who's unsigned, who's holding out of camp. You got Micah Parsons once paid. You got Dak on his last year, his contract. He's looking to be the highest paid quarterback. And so they're in deep trouble here in Dallas. I know they drafted some pretty good players to come in and hopefully start for them right away. Tyler Guyton, comes in at offensive tackle. They got Marshawn Nealand at defensive end, but he's from a smaller school, so you don't know whether or not he's going to stand up to the pounding of playing in the pros. And then Cooper Beebe on offensive line also. So they used to have one of the best offensive lines of football. They don't anymore. They bring in these two rookies and hope to patch them together with what they've got to, hope to protect Dak and run the football effectively. Of course, they don't have, it looks like this could be a lame duck year for the coach, the quarterback. They may trade Micah Parsons for a boatload of money and picks. I'm not sure Dallas makes the playoffs, Chris.
I mean, to me, I still think Dallas makes the playoffs. I still think they have a decent year. I think they might even be in the top 10. I don't expect too much different from Dallas because Dallas is consistent with one thing. And David, you know what that consistency is? Looking like a juggernaut.
And then break your heart.
No. They look like a juggernaut most seasons. During the regular season, the Cowboys could be one of the hardest teams you play all year. When it comes to real games, win or go home, Dallas folds.
Yep.
All the time. Because they're always missing them key players. Because the owner, Jerry Jones, is not a good GM. He's been the cancer around this team since he's owned the damn team. It's and that's just the thing. Like I don't see. I'm not going to sit here and say Dallas ain't going to make the playoffs or anything like that because I think they do, but I don't think they go far. I don't think nothing changes. You know, to me, nothing's going to change until Jerry Jones leaves the front office. When he stops with the money and stops doing the contracts, that's when, you know, when this team might make the hurdle. Unless, I mean, look at it. Right now, Ron said it earlier. Their two best players on the team right now are not even signed. You got Michael Parsons over there that, you know, dominated the league for the last few years, but I feel like the last 2 years he's not really done much. I think he's a cancer. And at this point, David, I'm not sure if Jerry could cash Parsons in a trade and get all that, what he could have got for him a couple years back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he hasn't been around very long anyway to establish himself as one of the best players, you know, defensively. But, you know, I mean, people have noticed right away how good he was. And they don't want to get rid of them. They want to be able to sign them all. And you know, I look at their schedule here. It's not a world-beating schedule, so maybe you're right. Maybe they'll be exactly who they always are, like a 12-5 team, so that when they get to the first round of the playoffs, they can take a dump on themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they got to go. They got to go to San Francisco for the second straight year. They're going to play Houston on a Monday night. You know, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. The AFC North is going to be a real tough division. But in their own division, you know, Washington, we seem to think Washington's going to be better. We know Philadelphia will be better after they fucking laid an egg the second half of the year. But you got some easy ones. You got at Carolina, you know. You got Detroit. That's in the. Oh no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. You got at Atlanta.
Well, to me, there's only
Tampa Bay. You know, New Orleans.
I mean, let's be real with their division here, and this is the only real threat they have in their whole division is Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The Giants, they're still building up. They might be a tad bit better. Washington might be a tad bit better.
I would not be surprised at all if Washington was this year's Houston. I mean, I don't think they can win the division, but I think they could surprise the hell out of people and have a big
I think they might be a better football team because, you know, they got the positive. To me, the energy and the vibes are way better now in Washington than they have been in other years. But I think it's kind of crazy to even put them in Houston. Yeah, I mean, we got to see if the rookie even starts this year for them. We got to see how they even look. But I don't think Washington's like Houston. I don't think they're even close to that. Not this year, maybe next year. Right. I still think they need a little bit more, especially with the brand new coach. You know, you got to remember Houston had their coach.
We're going to talk about Washington next week, so I won't spoil too much. But just real quick, they brought in Bobby Wagner to play middle linebacker in Washington. He knows the Dan Quinn system. Okay?
Yeah, I
know. You got a lot of underachieving players on defense that need a kick in the pants, and Dan Quinn's the kind of guy to do it. You bring in a new quarterback who might be the best quarterback in this class. They've got a couple of new players offensively, and they tried to bolster their offensive line. We'll see. We'll talk about them more next week. We'll talk about Washington next week.
I'm just going to end it here real quick. I'm not going to go more in detail, but I just want to point this out so everybody thinks about it a little bit. I'm not saying that they can't be good. It's just, to me, you bring one player that's familiar in, rest of those 52 players have to learn a whole new playbook.
Yeah.
You know, Houston's coach was there the year before with all the other guys. So we moved on to Jim Harbaugh.
Yep, Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. My little inside joke there.
Oh, let's go. Let's do these comments real quick before we get hard in here. Dak has to get paid. Lamb needs to be paid. Jerry will have to pay because of all these players getting paid. When St. Brown got paid, I laughed at the Cowgirls. Look who has been paid since. You're not wrong. Dan David, why are you hating?
Yeah, I laughed about that. Just giving some shit. You know,
Watch me on Turkey Day again.
Yeah.
They better be good.
Yeah. Well, listen, Los Angeles Chargers, I expect them to be in the playoff hunt. Let's start with just the coach, okay? Jim Harbaugh has won and turned around programs everywhere he has gone. From when he was at San Diego State, when he went to Stanford, he goes to the 49ers, and he goes to Michigan. None of these programs were setting the lights on fire, we're setting the world on fire. And suddenly, now I know it took them a little bit longer to get over the hump of Ohio State, but they're Ohio State, okay? And so, but for the most part, he has shown what he can do. And because of the players and the guys that he's bringing over, the general manager worked with his brother in Baltimore, so he knows him very well. Jim Harbaugh is building this team. He has control over the roster, okay? That's one of the things that caused him to leave San Francisco. He had a big blow-up with the general manager there at the time. He wasn't going to come to the NFL unless he got some control over the roster because, that's just something that he wanted, and they paid him big money. The Chargers are notoriously cheap when it comes to paying coaches, and so their expectations are going to be high. They let Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly walk at running back. Eckler still had plenty in the tank, but he's not the kind of running back that Jim Harbaugh is used to having. He builds his team through the offense and defensive lines, and then they run the football at people to control time of possession, give their defense a chance to rest, and, wants a tough smash mouth football team. And that's what he's going to get with Gus Edwards, the running back who played at Baltimore. Now, J.K. Dobbins was brought in because he's going to know the offensive system, but he's been injury-prone the last several years. But he's not expected to be the starter. You're going to see Josh Edwards. You'll see Isaiah Spiller, who's still on the team. They had to jettison their wide receivers. Mike Williams ends up with the Jets. Keenan Allen ends up with Chicago. Alex Erickson and Jalen Guyton were, lower-tier wide receivers. They still have Quentin Johnston, and they still have Josh Palmer. And then they draft Ladd McConkey in the second round, and they bring in DJ Chark. So I think that they have the kind of wide receivers that are blocking receivers down the field to help the running game, but they can get open for their quarterback, who I forgot to mention in our news and notes, has plantar fascia, which is inflammation of the soft tissue on the bottom of your foot. It's very painful. He's probably not going to play in any of the preseason games. He's probably going to be laid up throughout the rest of training camp. Hopefully it will not be a situation in this first year under Harbaugh that he's got to have surgery. And so just looking at what else we have here, they brought in Bradley Bozeman. They drafted Joe Alt, who is a monster of a human being. I think the offensive line is going to be just fine. Okay. Poona Ford at defensive end is, to be a backup to Bosa there. Denzel Perryman, who has been with the Chargers before, comes back after being gone in Houston and with the Raiders, and Christian Fulton at corner. Now, I put down the 3rd and 7th round picks here because Junior Colson at linebacker is from Michigan. Your boy Jim Harbaugh knows him very well, and I think that bringing him in is no accident. He knows him so well. I think he expects him to be one of the leaders on their defense.
Well, he does for sure. Colston is a leader.
The 7th round pick is the son of Jerry Rice, Brendan Rice. He may be the bottom of the roster right now, okay, but he's got the pedigree. He showed what he could do at times. There were glimpses at USC, and it just took, a team to pick him up, work with him. They do not have a super strong, wide receiving core. And so I think that he makes the roster. They will give him opportunities to develop himself. He could be somebody to look forward to in the future, in the next year or two.
My opinion on the Chargers is it's not a bad year for a rebuild because this is what this looks like to me. But only why I say that, they do have room, and I think they got the perfect division other than having to face the Chiefs twice a year. But the rest of the division is beatable. So they do have an opportunity to be in the playoff talk as long as Herbert can play the full season and stay healthy and everything works out. But I know Jim Harbaugh's offensive scheme, and for his offense to truly work, his running game has to be alive. If his running game ain't alive, he struggles. And that's what scares me. And I'll tell you two things. And I have nothing against these running backs. I've always been like a closet fan of Gus Edwards, just because I knew he was one of those people that made the team on practice squad, worked his way to the NFL roster, and played pretty decent to the best of his abilities in certain games. J.K. Dobbins, he's from Ohio State, so I never really cared for him. But in the NFL, he showed glimpses of being a great running back until the injuries have occurred the last couple of years for this guy. I'm not 100% sold that Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to run his offense with those two backs in the backfield. Just the health concerns and how many times he's going to want him to carry that ball. He's going to want him to carry that ball awful lot, and I do not know those two guys' bodies will hold up to the whole season. What really sucks is, what guy would have been perfect for this fucking offense? Austin Eckler.
Oh, yeah.
Austin Eckler. But the Chargers wouldn't pay him and give him his money.
Well, it was more than just that.
Well, I know there's a lot more of that, but that was the main reason. If they gave him a long-term contract with the money he has, I'm pretty sure he stays there. Yeah. But they lost the best running back to do his offense. That's why I wasn't trying to be a homer back in the draft time of our show when I kept linking Blake Corum.
Yeah, I thought sure, and he was there. He was there.
He was
there. They had him in the second round. They could have had him in the third round, but they valued Ladd McConkey and Junior Colson more.
Yep. And to me, that hurts him. I get what he was doing because he needed defensive help. So I understand what he had to do. And I'm not mad at Harbaugh for doing what he had to do. But to me, your offense starts from the running back and goes forward. Your running back was the key player. Your GM and your team previously, before you got there, fucked you in the ass with no Vaseline and ruined the relationship with Eckler. So he left. And then put you in a dark predicament. And the one running back that could have came in and would have fit perfect with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins until he got the ropes was corn. So to me, I'm excited to see where the Chargers are at. But to me, this is a 100% rebuild year. I think they're better than they were last year. And they do have, I'll give them a small window for a wild card berth, but I wouldn't hold your breath.
Well, I mean, you just look at the schedule, you know. Ron said it. He said, you'll know what you got after the first 4 weeks of the season. They got to go to Carolina, to Pittsburgh, play at home against Kansas City before the bye, and they're going to play the Raiders, who, I mean, absolutely annihilated them. You know, they put up 60, you know, against them when it's like, you know, they and the coach was out. He was done. That was the end of the coach, you know. And so just looking at the rest of the schedule here, at Cleveland, playing Baltimore. Of course, you know they got to go to Kansas City. It's not too awful a schedule. Not too bad. You know, I mean, they do have to play the AFC North. But, you know, playing the NFC South isn't going to hurt them. Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, you know, Tampa Bay. I think all of those are winnable games for this team. Atlanta might be an interesting one because it's at Atlanta. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're a 9-8 team. They're a 9-8 team. They could sneak in. I think it takes 10 wins in the AFC to make the playoffs. It got to be at least 10 wins.
Yeah.
And that'll lead us to the last of our presentation. This is where you're like, okay, good night, folks. Thanks a lot. It's the Minnesota Vikings.
Come. Everybody, good night. Have a good night. We're out. We don't want to talk about these things.
Oh, boy.
Ron got the perfect message for you. You tell this guy.
Fuck the Vikings.
Fuck
Well,
JJ
all right.
McCarthy, too.
I'll tell you what. You first. Anyway, the Vikings are basically rebuilding. They had to because of their salary cap situation, which got a whole hell of a lot better when they decided to let Kirk Cousins walk. Sam Darnold comes in to be the starting quarterback, or at least the placeholder until first-round draft pick J.J. McCarthy from Michigan is ready to be their starting quarterback. Now, they jettisoned the turnover-plagued Alexander Madison and picked up the scraps from the Packers who signed Josh Jacobs and got Aaron Jones to come in at running back. Trent Sherfield will be one of their return men. They're converting N'Keal Harry to tight end, and they brought in Robert Tonyan. Offensive line, Dan Feeney. Defensive line, they got Jonah Williams and Jihad Ward. Jerry Tillery at defensive tackle comes over from the Raiders. He was one of their best defensive linemen. He got replaced by Christian Wilkins, by the way. And then, you know, they let Daniil Hunter go to Houston, and then they bring in a couple players from Houston in Jonathan Greenard. And they get Andrew Van Ginkel from the Dolphins and Blake Cashman, you know, from the Packers and the Giants. And so they got a whole new linebacking core. And they drafted Dallas Turner. He was the first defensive player off the board in this draft, which was a surprise. And so I think they've done some good things here. I was glad that they didn't pay Kirk Cousins. I thought his time was over. Alexander Madison fumbled the ball way too much. Josh Dobbs was just a stopgap when Cousins was injured. I like Darnold much better. KJ Osborne left with the Patriots. Dalton Reisner's gone. Dean Lowry, Marcus Davenport joined, Detroit there, and they're hoping to get something out of him. Like I said, Danielle Hunter went to Houston. Jordan Hicks is gone. Anthony Barr and DJ Woonham. So just looking at their schedule, I mean, they made the playoffs 2 years ago. I think they could have made the playoffs last year had Kirk Cousins not got hurt, but their running game was terrible. But now they're going to have Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones. I like the offensive line. They've invested money in it. If Sam Darnold doesn't turn the football over, he's got weapons to throw the ball to. I think the first game out of the gate will be tough for them. I don't expect them to have success against San Francisco like they did last year. They'll be ready for them this year. The best they can hope for is a split with Green Bay. I don't think they can beat Detroit this year. I think they can get a split with Chicago. I think it'll be a big deal December 8th when they play against Atlanta. Kirk Cousins comes back. Maybe by that point, J.J. McCarthy will be starting at quarterback. And so I think maybe they can win there. I don't see a whole lot in Seattle this year. 6-11, it's a rebuilding year.
Yeah,
but I think they're headed in the right track. This is the first year they got their quarterback of the future. They got their, team leaders, if you will, at linebacker in the draft, and then the guys that they brought in that are veterans. I think their secondary is going to be weak as hell. They had a guy they drafted, and it's really a tragedy. The guy was killed. The guy died, and they really thought they had something. He was I believe either a 4th or 5th round draft pick, and they really thought they had something. But early on in training camp, the guy got into a car accident and was killed. And, really unfortunate for them. They're kind of dedicating this season to the guy because he had a really bright future ahead of him. But
rest in peace, that young man.
Yeah, it's bad, because he might have been, a cornerstone for this team and going forward in the future. But like I said, 6-11, I don't have high hopes. Especially in what I think is going to be a loaded division this year with Green Bay and Detroit slugging it out for the lead, and then Chicago will be above them. As far as the Vikings go, I think that, like I said, 6-11. What do you think of the Vikings other than they absolutely suck?
I actually think Minnesota is really smart. And while I think Minnesota is very smart, and I know I don't say this often a lot, Dave, because I give you shit. To me, they did the smartest thing I think I've ever seen them do in a long time, because they were scared, to me, to draft quarterbacks after what's his name before Bridgewater. He was a white guy. He was dating that real hot reporter.
Christian Ponder.
Yep. He flopped.
She is the host for NFL Countdown now on ESPN. Yep. Sarah Ponder.
He flopped, and then they did and then they drafted Teddy Bridgewater, and then Teddy Bridgewater fortunately broke his leg and had to miss that much football, which led him to, at that point, chase down Kirk Cousins. And at that point, I felt like their confidence in drafting young kids as a quarterback, they didn't have much, because they had a flop. Then they had the Bridgewater experiment happen to them. And, the Kirk Cousins signing wasn't as bad as I originally said back then. It had some good years. They just weren't able to get the job done. So instead of them either re-signing him, which I figured Minnesota would reach and get themselves in more trouble by keeping him, to me, that was the smartest move. Let's just play this year how it goes. Let's draft JJ. And I don't know if you've seen the last video they just put on Twitter of JJ. He was making some pretty-ass throws in the back of that end zone. And I've heard some good reports. I would not be surprised if Sam Darnold struggles in the first 5 weeks. And JJ could even be in there by week 3. If he keeps having a solid training camp like this and Sam Darnold can't perform. And to me, I think JJ has the maturity, the mentality to be able to get his ass beat all year as a starter and not destroy him.
First game for JJ McCarthy will be the Indianapolis Colt game. After they play a Thursday night game at the Rams, they'll have 11 days to get ready for that game. And I think that that's more likely. I don't think that they're going to throw him in straight away against Detroit. I think that would be a mistake. I think that Darnold lasts at least until November the 3rd.
I agree with that. It could definitely happen. I'm just saying if it's so horrible with Sam Darnold in the first couple of weeks, to me it would have to be honestly embarrassing for them. So,
well, they're the Vikings. They are embarrassing, right?
They kind of are. It's not a lie.
Well, in
other words, with some training camp news.
You got some?
Yep. I don't know if anybody's seen the clips going around on social media, but the Lions and Giants have had training camp together because they play each other Friday, I believe. And St. Brown caught a pass. Their one cornerback wasn't happy. He caught another pass on him, obviously, and wouldn't let him go. So St. Brown ripped the football away from him, and the guy fell down. Then he got up, got in his face, and St. Brown shoved him down.
Oh.
And a whole brawl broke out in practice, where they even said Daniel Jones got involved in the brawl. So things that Lions ain't playing around, and it's only training camp. I like it. I like to see them boys physical.
Ron, that 3-game suspension on Addison is not official yet. They have to let the process go through. He's got to plead, guilty, not guilty, and go through all of the the legal hoops before they do anything. There's no that hasn't been official yet. I understand that it could be, a 3-game suspension, but we'll just have to wait and see if that happens before, during, or after this season.
And then while we're on the topic, I totally forgot starting out. Lions do have injury news. John Kaminsky, defensive end, veteran, tore his MCL the other day in practice, will be out for the season.
Yeah, you didn't need him anyway. You didn't need him.
Return for the playoffs. So it's a bad news, but positive that he'll be back at playoff time. And that leaves room for Davenport. That's a wide open door for Davenport. And we got
I'm sure he was going to make the team anyway.
Well, for sure he's going to make the team. I'm just saying he'll
get a lot more snaps.
He's going to get the starter position. And then you got Bettis coming from Canadian Football League, which is probably making it pretty clear he's going to make the team. And a lot of positive reports from that kid. They said he's very fast off the line, really good with his hands. So him and Davenport will have full rotation.
That's the standard that it would be as a 3-game suspension based on, what's going on. But that hasn't been laid down yet. So I understand because I saw the same stuff. Anyway, that's all we got for this edition. Next week, we will talk the Washington Commanders, the Denver Broncos, the Arizona Cardinals, and one other team I haven't decided yet as we get closer and closer to the NFL season. And we're getting really close to fantasy football time, everybody. Do we have our draft dates set up, Chris?
No, we do not.
We need to have a Fourth and Goal Sports podcast freaking fantasy football league.
I'm down to do it.
Get Ron. He can get a team. Get your boy Smoking Joe in there.
Let's do it. Also,
let's do it on ESPN.
I'm going to get with
Let's
you.
not do it on Yahoo.
I like Yahoo. I play your. Hey, by the way, did you renew your league?
Yeah.
Okay, so I should be in it already, or do I got to rejoin?
As far as I know, everybody should be in that was in my leagues.
Because I seen a notification for it. I just wanted to make sure though, because
I'll look and double check, but you should be. I don't have a Yahoo league. I've got ESPN leagues. The only Yahoo leagues I have is I've got, I think, 2 with you, or maybe only 1, and then the other 2 are with another guy.
Yeah, I might start.
Your wife would kill you. Well, that's okay. You're half dead anyway. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, Ron, tell her you're the #1 fan of this show. You've been with us the longest. You need to tell her that you got to play fantasy football with us. It's only fair. Come on, man.
He already told her no date nights till February. There you go.
I'm trying to get me a girlfriend.
Night.
Is that what we got to do?
Every night. You got the Thursday night games. Okay, week 1 it's Thursday night, Friday night, then Sunday, then Monday. Then we come back and we do Thursday again with Sunday and Monday, and it'll be like that for a few weeks before we get to, Thanksgiving and Christmas on Wednesday and all kinds of crazy shit.
He told her and got bitch slapped.
She bitch slapped me. That's terrible.
So I'm talking to this girl and trying to get a girlfriend, okay? So do I need to tell her this, or do I wait until it's official to tell her this? I need to know, Ron.
Tell her in advance. Don't spring it on her. Just go ahead and tell her in advance. I'm a Lions fan. I'm going to be watching football on the evenings that there are football games. So if you want to date me, which you should anyway, you should want to date me because I'm really cool. I own my own business. I'll even mow your lawn if you put it out. And, I'm available on Wednesdays, Fridays, and maybe Saturday, depending on who's playing in college.
Thank you for the advice, fellas.
I'll let you guys know how it goes. Because Tuesday night's the podcast. Okay?
Yeah, I have Tuesday
night
got
free. The podcast, you got to, unless she's going to hang around and watch the podcast, and then, you have a great time online, and you have a great time after the show.
Exactly. That's how you live life, boys. You got to find that woman that can do both.
Thank y'all for watching the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. We ran a little longer tonight than I was hoping we would, but 4 real decent teams that I know there's a lot of fans of, especially Dallas and Miami.
Hey,
and
you never showed your trophy.
We're looking forward to see what the Chargers do this year. And, of course, Renegades and all that. It's NFC North, so Vikings. I know you don't like them.
She's the
best. Be glad you can whip them right now, because I tell you, we're coming in a couple of years. We're going to be coming.
Hey, it's okay. Your daddy be waiting at the top for you.
All right. Good night, everybody, and thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next week. Could be Sunday night. Could be Monday night.
It might be Wednesday. Who knows?
Could be Tuesday. There might be a football game on. We can't avoid that.
Can't miss the football games.
That's right.
It's good to be back. All right, guys. Good night. We'll see you next week.
Hey, and I'll see you back here in a few minutes, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.